It's not a job most people dream of, I guess. I prepare the dead for their final goodbyes. It's quiet work, mostly. Precise. I've seen a lot in my time here, but nothing prepares you for some things. And nothing prepared me for him. This started about a month ago, maybe a little more. It's all a bit fuzzy now, for reasons that will become clear. I remember the day it shifted, though. I just finished with a young woman. A girl, really. Late teens, maybe early 20s. The report said suicide. Gunshot to the face. A messy, tragic end. Her body was odd. Not in a gruesome way, not more than usual for that kind of trauma. But her shoulders. They seemed to sag just a little too much, even in death, even with me working to make her presentable. As if she'd been carrying something immense for a very long time. Her parents, when they came to make arrangements, were devastated, of course. They kept saying she'd been struggling with anxiety. Kept talking about a weight. Said she always complained about a terrible weight on her shoulders. A physical burden nobody else could see or understand. They said she insisted it wasn't just a feeling, it was real. I nodded, listened. Grief does strange things to people, makes them fixate on details. I did my work, tried to offer what little comfort I could. She was buried a few days later. And then he started appearing. The old man. Every morning, without fail, when I arrived at the mortuary building, he'd be there. Waiting. Leaning against the cold brick wall by the entrance. Or sometimes just standing, swaying slightly, like a dried-up reed in a non-existent wind. He was old. Impossibly old, it felt like. Not just wrinkled and gray, but ancient. Skeletal is the only word that comes close. His skin was like old parchment, stretched so tight over his bones you could see their outline, his cheekbones, his jaw, the knobbly joints of his fingers. He was abnormally thin, as if he hadn't eaten a proper meal in a century. His clothes were rags, thin and dirty, offering no protection against the morning chill. And every single day, the same routine. I'd see him from down the block, a knot tightening in my stomach. I'd try to walk a little faster, maybe look at my phone, pretend I didn't see him. It never worked. As I'd approach the door, he'd shuffle forward, his movements slow, agonizing. One hand, gnarled and trembling, would extend towards me. His eyes, sunk deep in their sockets, were like old, clouded marbles, but they'd fix on me with an unnerving intensity. "Spare change, son?" His voice was a dry rasp, like sandpaper on wood. Just a little something. For an old man. Always the same words. Always that same pleading, yet somehow demanding tone. He never got aggressive, never raised his voice. Just that persistent, quiet begging. The first few times, I felt a pang of pity. He looked so wretched. I gave him $1, maybe $2. But he was back the next day. And the next. And the next. My pity started to wear thin. It became an annoyance. A daily irritation I had to navigate just to get to work. Why me? There were other people going into the building, other businesses on the same block. But he only ever approached me. He'd be there when I arrived, and gone by the time anyone else showed up. It was like he knew my schedule. I started to ignore him. I'd walk past, eyes straight ahead, headphones in even if I wasn't listening to anything. He'd still try. That raspy voice would follow me. "Son? Just a little something." I'd feel his gaze on my back until I was through the door. It made my skin crawl. The building manager saw him a couple of times. Shooed him away. He'd go docile as a lamb. But the next morning, he'd be back. Waiting for me. I began to dread going to work. Not because of the deceased I had to care for, but because of the living ghost at the door. He never touched me, never got too close, but his presence was a constant, gnawing pressure. Felt targeted. I wondered briefly if he was some distant, destitute relative of one of the families I'd served. But that didn't make sense. His appearance was too extreme, too unsettling. And this all started, I was sure of it, right after the young woman, the one with the weight, was laid to rest. The thought flickered, then I dismissed it. Coincidence. This city has plenty of desperate people. But the daily ritual continued. The skeletal figure, the outstretched hand, the raspy plea. Some days I'd give in, shove a bill into his hand just to make him go away, to stop that awful, expectant stare. He never said thank you, just took the money and vanished. Other days, I'd steel myself and walk past, the guilt and annoyance warring within me. This went on for weeks, felt like months. My sleep started to suffer. I'd see his face in my dreams, that skeletal, waiting figure. I was jumpy, irritable. My colleagues at the mortuary noticed I was on edge. I just shrugged it off, said I wasn't sleeping well. How could I explain this? That an ancient-looking beggar was singling me out every morning? They'd think I was losing it. Finally, one morning I snapped. I'd had a particularly bad night, filled with those hollow, staring eyes. As I approached the building, there he was, same spot, same pose. Son, a little help for an old man. Look, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. I can't keep doing this. You need to find somewhere else to be. He just blinked, slowly. That hand remained outstretched. Just a little something, son. Frustration boiled over. No, not today. Not anymore. You need to leave me alone. He didn't react, didn't flinch. Just kept that hand out, his gaze unwavering. It was like talking to a wall, a particularly creepy, emaciated wall. That was it. I pulled out my phone. I'm calling the police, I told him, my hand shaking slightly as I dialed. This is harassment. He watched me dial, his expression unchanging. It was unnerving. He showed no fear, no concern. Just patience. The dispatcher took my report. Loitering, persistent begging, causing distress. They said they'd send a car when one was available. I stood there, a few feet from the old man, waiting. He waited too, perfectly still. The silence was heavy, broken only by the distant city sounds. Felt like a showdown, a ridiculous, pathetic showdown. A patrol car pulled up about 20 minutes later. 2 officers got out, young, looking bored. I explained the situation. How this man was here every day, how he only approached me, how it was becoming a serious issue. They looked at the old man. He just stood there, looking frail and harmless, a picture of pitiable old age. One of the officers, a woman, sighed. Sir, she said to me, he looks pretty harmless. And, well, he's on a public sidewalk. Technically, he's not doing anything illegal by asking for money. But it's every day, I insisted. And he only targets me. It's unsettling.